What?
My huge capacity.
Okay.
You put those pouches. Can you hear me good? All right, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Did you get my email, Michelle, that I sent last minute?
with the agenda,
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
I just had to restart my, I was trying to use my hotspot and it kept disconnecting, so I'm into the hotel Wi-Fi now, so it should be okay.
Okay. Lady Bernard, can you hear us?
I'm not sure she can hear me because I was trying to talk to her a minute ago.
Is there a way to wave at her or something? No.
Try to send her a message.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So you want me to mute it?
No,
You
you're
don't
all right.
have- Yeah, you don't have to right now. It's probably better when we do start like the whole meeting, everybody's there if you mute, so everybody won't get a bunch of feedback.
To get everybody in, then I'll put the agenda up on the screen.
Okay.
Tamaris, I just made you a co-host because it keeps booting me off.
Okay.
Hi there.
No.
Hi.
How are you, everybody? Everybody doing well?
We're good. How are you doing?
Hanging in there.
Good, good. I know you haven't been outside, huh?
No, I haven't at all, really.
Did I
Well,
hear you guys are locked down till the 31st of December, Sister Pat?
That's correct. We are.
Oh, wow.
well, you're a city in a city.
Yes, we are. We have a lot of older women, so
Smart idea.
yeah. We had one coworker test positive last week. So we're all getting tested this Thursday and Friday again for the second time.
Oh, fun.
Okay. Well, at least you have that opportunity to get tested.
Yes. Yeah, we're
That's
blessed.
a blessing. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I've missed you. I
I've
wondered
missed
how you were doing.
Oh. Well, I had a little heart issue in June. I had a heart catheterization
Oh,
the
they
night
came there and did it?
blockage. So yeah, I was in the hospital.
Okay.
So now I do cardio
Well, now I
rehab.
know why you were in my prayers.
There you go. And they helped. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
You disappeared off the screen.
Want to let everybody know my Wi-Fi is a little bit shaky here, so if something happens to the meeting, just go back to the same link and you can just get right back into the meeting. If it goes
Okay,
down for some reason.
okay. Oh, there's D'Angelo. Hi.
Hello.
You guys feel like you're in romper room yet?
Michelle, it's really weird. You're never on camera. You're
I know.
always, I know, look at you, expanding your horizons.
Right?
I don't think I've ever seen her on camera either, Mayor.
I know.
My desktop computer at work doesn't have a webcam, so go figure.
Ah, that's why.
Mine doesn't either.
I'm okay with that though.
All right, normally we would be really pressed to start on time because that's the proper thing to do, but I do want to give just a couple more minutes because I know that Zoom is new for almost everybody. And I want to give the Historic District Commission a couple minutes to hop onto. I see Clark, but I'm waiting on a couple other people.
Yeah, Peter's on there too. Did you see him? Just so you know.
I do see Peter. I didn't know who he was. Hi, Peter. Clark, did you ever imagine you'd be practicing law by Zoom?
Not really. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Here comes Betsy.
Hello,
Hello, Betsy.
hello, hello. How do I make
Hi,
this everybody?
Betsy.
Hi. There. Okay, there. Ta-da. I did it.
Tamaris, I can't remember. I know I've been to a historic commission meeting before, but I cannot remember who's all on there. But I will tell you, all of human relations is on now. I just checked.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna do a moment of silence and we're gonna pretend that we have a flag because I don't have one in here like Robin does when we do commission meetings. So if you can all stand for a moment of silence and I'm gonna let the mayor lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance too.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. There are some items on the agenda that are not necessary for us to cover, but I wanted to put together a sample agenda for those members of the Human Relations Commission so that you could see what an agenda looks like for a regular meeting. So the next item would generally be roll call. And then if you've had a previous meeting, then the next thing that you would do is approve minutes from the previous meeting. Or if there had been some reason for you to have a closed session meeting, then you would approve minutes for that at that point as well. Had there been a special meeting, anything like that. So you could have theoretically more than one item under the approval of minutes, but generally you just have the approval of minutes from your previous meeting there. And those would all be provided to you in a meeting packet prior to your meeting. So you would have a chance to go through them and you would have a chance to figure out if you feel that there are any additions or deletions that need to be made. So next, we're just going to do introductions really quick, and then we have both members of the Human Relations Commission and members of the Historic District Commission. Those of you who are from HDC, you were asked to participate in this training so that you can make sure you have some type of overview on how to do a Zoom meeting so that you could start your regular meetings up again. So if after the part that Michelle does about Zoom hosting, if after that point you feel like you're good to go and you've been on your commission for a little while and you're doing fine with following OMA rules and FOIA rules and all those type of things, then you are released. But if you would like to stay, the training is a public meeting and the training is available to all of our appointed officials. You are welcome to stay for the entire hour for the training, but that will be your choice. So I'll leave that at your discretion. So if we could just start with introductions, and I'm just going to go down the list because I can't see all of your photos at one time. But for those of you who have never met me, my name is Tamaris Hennigan. I'm the city attorney. I've been here with the city of Adrian for about 2 years, a little over 2 years now. And part of my job is to make sure that all of our elected and appointed officials are comfortable with the rules that they have to follow so that they can effectively do their jobs and so that we stay out of legal trouble. So that's why I'm the one here tonight helping you along with this. Michelle, if you want to tell them who you are.
Sure. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Michelle Dewey. I work at the City of Adrian. I'm the assistant to the city administrator, to the city attorney, and then I also do our communications and marketing and host Zoom meetings.
Betsy, you're next on my list.
I am the chairman of the Historic District Commission and have lived in the Historic District for over 30 years. And I'm a new chairman, so this is a good meeting.
Good deal. Clark.
Yes, Clark Baldwin. I've been on the Historic District Commission for many, many years. I was past chairperson, and I'm just here to watch, observe, and if I can learn anything. Thank you.
Lindsay.
I'm Lindsay. I'm on the Human Relations Commission. I've been secretary and whatever Tamaris and anybody else has wanted me to do. So I'm just here to learn.
Thank you. Patty.
I think I'm Sister Patty, and I'm an Adrian Dominican sister. I'm a member of our general council, the leadership team here at the Mother House, and this is my second year on the Human Relations Commission.
Thank you. Lady Bernard. You're on mute or something.
Sorry. I'm Andrea Bernard, and I've been on the Human Relations Commission since it was reinstated. And I live in Adrian for quite a number of years. My husband is a pastor, and I work in ministry as well.
Thank you. Ashley. There you are. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I have my nephew running around the kitchen behind me, so I had everything muted and off. I'm Ashley Cavazos Frank. I've been a fangirl of HRC for a while, and I've been on it for about a week now, I think. Just here to learn and help.
Great. Ashley. Peter, they keep moving you guys around on my list. This isn't easy.
Hi, I'm Peter Barr. I'm on the Historic District Commission. I don't know how many years I've served on it. I'm currently the secretary. I think that's about it.
Great. Chris?
I'm Chris Carter, first time ever on the Human Relations Commission. I work at Siena Heights University as part of Student Support Services, and I'm also a work in ministry locally here in Adrian.
Thank you. D'Angelo?
Okay. Hello, hi, I'm D'Angelo Boone. I am new to the HRC. I am the Community Outreach Manager for Habitat for Humanity, the founder and leader of the City of Refuge Ministries, and I also chair the A3 All About Adrian Resident Coalition.
Thank you. Dylan?
Hi, I'm Dylan. This is my first time on the Human Relations Commission. I'm also a Siena student, so I'm just here to learn and help out any way I can.
Thank you, Dylan. Commissioner Gauss? Unmute yourself, Commissioner.
I'm I can never get that right. Tonight I am your public gallery, so I'm just here to see. I've been to meetings for both the Historic District Commission and many of the HRC, and I'm excited that, particularly for the HRC, that we've got a full complement of members tonight, and going forward, we will be, from what I understand, we will be having a resolution in our next commission meeting to reopen and reactivate the HRC. So that's an exciting thing, and good to get you all back. The new members, we welcome you, and the old members, it's exciting to be able to get you guys reactivated. So thank you.
Joaquin?
Hello, I'm Joaquin Ramos. I've been on the HRC for a couple of years, been attending city commission meetings for a couple of years, been active in the community for a little bit longer than that. I'm here for the training.
Thank you. And Mayor Heath?
I'm Mayor Angie Stewart Heath, and I'm actually on the Human Relations Commission. That is a newly appointed position, and I will be serving alongside the Human Relations Commission, but I've attended both the Historical District Commission meetings in the past and also Human Relations Commission, and thank you everyone for coming. This is just very important to make sure that we are doing our due diligence, to make sure that we are not violating Open Meetings Act, and just, it's always good to learn. Commissioner Gauss and myself are, new to public office since November, and we just take in any training we can get. I'm sure that's why he's on here. This is a good refresher for us as well. And I just think anytime we can get extra training, that's great. So thank you, Tamaris, for doing this for us.
Thank you. Okay, so my goal is not to keep you more than an hour. I do plan to talk pretty quickly, just to get through everything, but I do want you to ask questions as we go along. If you have anything to write questions down with, that might be the most effective way, because if you ask your questions at the end, you may find that I've covered a lot more things. The topics that we're going to talk about are going to trigger all kinds of what ifs in your mind, and you might find that I get to the what if, and so I'll try to save a few minutes at the end for questions, unless it's something really simple like just clarifying what did you just say, or could you repeat that, or something like that. So I'm going to let Michelle, we're going to move into the regular agenda, and I'm going to have Michelle talk to us all, including myself, about hosting a Zoom meeting, because though I have been participant in many Zoom meetings, I've never hosted one. Michelle does that for us from a little room like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain when we have commission meetings. And next week I have to host one. So she's training me while she trains all of you as well. So Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what all you guys can see on my screen. I know you can see the agenda. Can you see the tools at the top at all?
Like the
Yeah.
Word document tools?
No, the tools for the Zoom meeting. Do you see any of that?
No, we just, no, we just, the dot,
No.
the
All right,
Word document stuff.
so I'm gonna pause sharing real quick and pull up Zoom on the internet, and I'll show you from the beginning kind of how it works.
While Michelle's getting that set up, I just, one of the things that I did want to point out to you guys about having a Zoom meeting is that we're able to do these virtual meetings because the governor has issued executive order and she's continued to extend that over and over so that we can continue to have meetings safely while we're dealing with the pandemic. And we are required to make sure that the meetings are available telephonically, but we also have the option of having video and text available. We're also required to meet ADA requirements for those who have disabilities. So when we do our Zoom meetings, there is closed caption available, and phone call or the ability to call in is always available for people as well. But we usually do video, and there's also always a place where you can text questions, but we generally have that kept to where the questions go directly to the host so they can see them, but it can't just be blasted out to everyone. So go ahead, Michelle.
So you should all be able to see my Zoom account right now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Do you guys see the videos on the side of the screen, my videos? Let me minimize that. There we go.
Yes.
Okay, so when you have a Zoom account, we have a paid Zoom account through the city, which if you're going to have a meeting that lasts longer than 40 minutes, you'll need a paid account. If not, you can probably use a free one. When you set up a meeting, it's very easy. I mean, it's very simple to set up. There are simple things that you need to do to avoid what's called Zoom bombing, which a few of you on the line, I think, experienced with me, which was not a good time. Zoom bombing, for those of you that don't know, is when several people find a public meeting and they join the meeting and they flood it. They flood the chat, they flood the video, they share their screens with inappropriate content. And it's hard to shut down because you have several people at once. And I'll walk you through that in case that does happen too. But when you schedule a meeting, you want to have a template set up. So I have one that's already set up. It has all of the things in it that we need to do. Just set your date, your time, set your duration. And even if you set it for 1 hour and the meeting goes longer, that's okay. It's not going to end. It will keep going until you end the meeting. You want to make sure your time zone's correct. And then one of the things you always need to have is you need to require a meeting password. And although you don't actually enter the password's built into the link. It adds security to the meeting. Your participant video you can have on, you can have your host video on. These two don't really matter so much. You want to make sure that your audio is on both so that people can participate via telephone or the computer.
Okay.
You don't want to enable join before host. You want to have people come into the waiting room, and that way you can control who's coming into the meeting. And because these Zoom meetings are still public meetings, you have to let everyone in, and that's an important thing to remember. If you have a situation where you think you might have a Zoom bombing happening, you can't just start kicking people out. You can't kick them out until they actually do something inappropriate because it's a public meeting. So you have to allow everyone in. And one thing we did find out is if that happens, you can end the meeting and then everyone can go back to the same original link and join the meeting again. So it's not an end all situation. If that happens, you can just end the meeting and everyone can go back to the same link and you can start over. But it is important to let the public know that at the beginning of the meeting. We have a speech that our administrator gives that kind of goes over all of that. You can record the meetings. That's probably a good idea. I have mine set up to record in the cloud, and then we upload them to our YouTube channel. That way we can go back for minutes and the public can view them as well. And then when you're ready, you just save the meeting. You can download it to calendars, like I sent you all an invite today from the Outlook calendar, or you can also copy the invitation or copy the link and send it out that way. Another important thing that we've learned is the longer the public Zoom meeting link is out there, the more chance of the Zoom bombing. So now we post our notice ahead of time and we explain that the link will be posted the day of the meeting. And then around 11 a.m. or noon the day of the meeting, I change the post on our website and post the actual meeting link and then send it out to our commissioner, board, or whoever's taking part.
So
that's how you set one up. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I do have a question, not about setting up, but since we have a meeting next week, do we need to go through the city commission? I mean, go through the city for Zoom, or can we use any Zoom? Because Brenda had already sent, as she had, one of our commission members already has Zoom set up for her business. And so she had set one up. But do we have to use the city website, or can we use our own?
So I'll leave it up to Tamaris. I think you can use your own.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Tamaris.
You can use your own, just like Michelle said. If it's going to go longer than 40 minutes, you need to make sure that it's a paid account. Sounds like that is what you guys are dealing with if it's set up for someone's business. Just that you still would have to provide the link to the city so that Michelle can update notices on our website or wherever else that, we are required to post it at. So she can send you guys, you guys can get her the information and then she'll post the general notice. And then as soon as the link is set up, you need to send that out to her so that she can update those.
Okay, I'll make sure that's all taken care of tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wouldn't it still need to be recorded, being a public meeting?
There's not a requirement that it's recorded. That's something that we choose to do, but it could be recorded on that other individual's account and it still could be uploaded from there.
Maris, one question, if they're using their own account, so we use a separate software that we pay for to do the closed captioning.
Oh, yeah.
Which they
So
probably
that-
don't have.
You're right,
Okay.
Michelle.
That I will check on that tomorrow, because we might switch, knowing that you have an account, we might just switch over to yours. And since you're going to post it on the day of the meeting, and we'll get it. The majority of us are probably going to end up meeting at Clark's office. We can socially distance, but the idea was the Zoom meeting for the public. So.
Right.
And Michelle, didn't you tell me yesterday when I was in your office that you need to get on it like 15 minutes ahead to allow for that closed captioning?
Yeah, you have to get on it ahead of time, and then you have to go into a separate software system, and there's a whole little thing you have to do. It's not complicated, but you have to like copy the API token to that, and then you have to tell it you want to live stream, and it's a few steps you have to do.
Okay.
When is your meeting? The 21st?
First.
Okay.
It's the next Tuesday.
Okay. If you want, I could probably just do that one for you, or be the host on it so that I can set that up for you the first time.
If you could do that the first time, that would be great.
Sure.
But tomorrow, I will find you tomorrow, Michelle, and we will figure this out.
Okay.
Okay.
And then another suggestion, Betsy, is if you are all going to meet at Clark's office, the city clerk and I, we do all the commission meetings from the same location. We do them from the conference room here at City Hall. And we sit at opposite ends of the table when we do it. And so I would suggest that you have one person turn the volume up on their computer and have everyone else put it on mute so that you won't get feedback in the room. You'll all be able to hear what's being said at the meeting. So I always have my volume turned all the way down. And when I unmute myself, the speaker still works fine and everything without me turning the volume up. And I listen to the meeting through the city clerk's computer.
That sounds good.
Okay. Michelle, is there anything else that you need to share about the Zoom?
Not for setting it up. Once you're in the actual meeting, and unfortunately it's not going to let me show you that because it won't show you the tools. But once you're in the meeting, and you can kind of, when you have a Zoom account, you can practice this. You can set up, like I just did, a test meeting, and then you can go in, start the meeting, and you can play around with the tools. But some of the tools you'll need to remember are when you get into the meeting, you want to make sure that the chat is turned so that people can only chat with the host. That way, if you do get Zoom bombed, they can only send you chats instead of
Okay.
everyone. And then the other thing you want to make sure is that people are, the option for people to unmute themselves is checked, so that that way once they come in, they can unmute and speak. But there are other tools in there for in the event of a Zoom bombing where you can remove people from the meeting, you can mute them, and you can also lock the meeting so that no one else can get in temporarily.
Okay. Okay.
Michelle, if you're not available for the July 28th meeting of the Human Relations Commission, I'll just come into your office or we'll figure something out and I can do it from there. That way I can use your account if that's okay.
Yep.
All right, anything else, Michelle?
Not unless anybody has any specific questions, but if you do, feel free to send me an email and I can always hop on a Zoom meeting with you and make you a co-host, and then you can actually see all the tools. So if one of you are going to host one, like Tamaris, I can probably do that with you tomorrow or Thursday. So you'll actually be able to see the tools and how to use them.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, then on with the agenda. So, as I said earlier, Historic District, you're welcome to stay through the whole meeting if you'd like to, but if at any time you guys want to excuse yourself, you are welcome to do that as well. The Human Relations Commission is our newest commission in the city, and they've only been active, reactivated for the past 2 years, and we have had a really high turnover of members. So we're really excited to have a full dais again. But with that comes, as you heard most of them say in the introductions, the first time being appointed to some type of government body. And what we have found over the past couple of years is that that can be a little bit of a challenge, which we probably should have known, because coming into any job that's government related, we all are challenged by these new rules that we have to follow. It's a completely different animal than just your everyday operations. And so it seems like a lot of rules to follow at first. Once you get used to them, then they just kind of become second nature. But what I really need everyone to take away from today's training, even if you don't remember all the rules I teach you, because you can always reach out for that, but today's lesson is that the rules are not optional. That's what we all have to understand. And I think that that was where I dropped the ball last year in trainings, is I wasn't strict enough to say the rules are not optional. I just took for granted that once it was put out there, people would just do it. And I know that it's not that they don't mean to, but you're just used to doing things a certain way. So if you end up getting pulled to the side by me or pulled into a little room or get an email or something, it's not that I'm yelling at you. It's my job to be the legal mom of the city. So it's my job to coach and guide you along the way and show you how to do things the right way so that the city avoids any liability issues. So don't take it personal. If that has to happen, I try to explain it well, and just always feel free and comfortable to reach out and ask questions at any time. Even if you're in the middle of a meeting, feel free to ask the mayor or a commissioner who's present, or if I'm present, or an individual who's been on your commission a little bit longer. Feel free to stop yourself and say, you know, do you know the proper way for me to do this? Because it's always better to ask. So first, we're just going to talk a little bit. You'll see that item 5.2 is public meetings. I just want to emphasize for you that public meetings are different than community meetings. And most of us, when we get involved as volunteers in the community, we start out with being in some type of community group. We may or may not have leadership in that group as far as having a structure and having officers set up. But even when we do, community groups tend to be really relaxed, and we are generally people who we get to know really well. And so we don't always follow a strict, what do I want to say, like strict rules with how we have to do things. But when you're part of a government body, we're bound by what's called the Open Meetings Act. And so we have to follow the rules of the Open Meetings Act, whether we like it or not. And the Open Meetings Act is basically a law that's there to create transparency for government, so that the individuals in the community can know what's going on in the government. So just keep that in mind, even though we don't like the rules. One of the things you're going to hear as an appointed official or elected official is that people think the government's not transparent. So just remind yourself that this is the reason that we're following these rules, so that we'll be consistent and that information is available to the public. Also, I want to clarify for you the difference between what we do in a pre-meeting or a study session and what we do in a regular meeting. So in a pre-meeting or a study session, it's going to be much more lax, like how we're talking tonight. We can ask questions about things, we can interact, and really can have discussions and conversations. Those are the meetings that, if any of you've ever participated in a commission meeting or you watch the commission meeting, those are the meetings that you see the commissioners having in the back room. And they're much more casual. And it's time for information to be presented to you as a group, new ideas to be presented, time for you to ask questions and gather information about it. And it's not the place, though, where we make decisions. During a pre-meeting, we don't take votes, and we're not allowed to take votes. We don't try to figure out what everybody else is going to vote. When we get to that place, we are just talking about it. It may be that your position is known based on what you're saying, but it's not that you're just kind of saying out loud, I am going to do this today, but so much as it might be known by the comments that you make or the questions that you're asking. But a pre-meeting is an informational gathering. It is a time for you to problem solve and get answers to things that you need. And oftentimes, especially with our city commission, they do not like to vote on anything in the regular meeting that was just brought up in that pre-meeting that night. They prefer to see it 1 to 2 pre-meetings prior to it be putting on the regular agenda to vote. So that gives them some time to process that information. So if there's something we want to bring to them as an idea or as a resolution that we know they're going to have to make a decision on, we try to put that on the pre-meeting agenda 2 weeks to a month before we need that decision to be made. The commissioners get the information and then they're able to go home and process that and have time to come back to whatever staff member it is with questions. And that way, being well prepared by the time that item makes the regular agenda when it's time for them to make a decision. That's really important because your regular meetings are the time for you to make decisions. And you're going to find that in your regular meetings, things move rather quickly and very methodically. So an item's going to be on the agenda. You'll see that when Mayor Heath runs our meetings that she reads the item on the agenda, she asks for a motion, she asks for a second, she opens it up to public comment, she opens it up to commissioner comment, and then there's a roll call. So a lot of people often don't understand that the reason things are moving so quickly from the dais is because the conversation and discussion has been had prior to that time that the item was placed on the agenda. The work has been done in that study session or pre-meeting session. And the questions have been asked ahead of time, whether it's because they've emailed the staff member, they've emailed the chair of the commission, but they've gotten clarification on things. And so that's why it's really important to put things on your pre-meeting ahead of time. And it's important for you to understand that that's how the system works, so that as people in the public are asking you, well, why'd you just make that decision so quick? You have a valid explanation for them. It's because we've been working on this since April, or we've been working on this since the beginning of June, and we were informed about it. And you can even tell them, you can go back and watch the pre-meetings if you'd like to, or you can go back and read the pre-meeting minutes and so on, so that they understand that you're taking your role seriously as a commissioner, in that you are well informed about what's going on. Okay. In addition to that, whenever you have a meeting, a public meeting has to be properly noticed under the OMA, or Open Meetings Act. And so there's a certain amount of time that it has to be noticed. Your notices or your information goes to Michelle Dewey, and Michelle helps to get the notices out and get them published. They have to be placed in certain number of places. That's not your concern. Your concern is that you get it to Michelle so that it can get done. And every time that there's what's called a quorum of your commission, that creates a public meeting. And a quorum is just a majority. So if there are 7 of you and 4 of you get together, you've created a quorum. If there are 9 of you and 5 of you get together, you've now created a quorum. So especially for the HRC, this has been a challenge for us over the past couple of years because you're a very unique type of commission in that you do a lot of activity with the public. You do a lot of events with the public. You've done movie screenings, book reviews. You've done events to teach on diversity and racism. And you're very good at supporting your own events, which means every time you have an event, we have a quorum. And we're very happy that you guys support all of your events. But that also means that every time you have an event, you have to post a public notice. We do that as a safety measure because quite honestly, I don't know if I've ever showed up to one of your events without you having a quorum. So we do that as better safe than sorry so that we can never be accused of not giving proper notice. The concern with that from a public perspective is that if you have a quorum there, then it could be that you're discussing city business and influencing each other in future decisions that could be made. And so that's why we have to notice it as a public meeting whenever there's going to be a quorum present. For the historic district, you guys probably don't run into that situation very often. And there is an exception for everyone where you can go to social events, but you're not allowed to discuss city business while you're present at the social event, because you will find yourself at places like benefit dinners and grand openings for businesses and things like that. So when that happens, we don't have to provide a notice, but I would strongly urge you to avoid gathering in groups of the people that are on your commission. So a couple of you together is fine, 2 or 3, but don't go over that, and never discuss city business while you're there. And if someone on your commission brings up a question, because it's very easy to do, we see each other and we think, oh my gosh, I meant to ask D'Angelo about this. Let me talk to him while I see him. And we have to be bold enough to remind each other that we shouldn't be discussing business while we're at an event, and why don't you give me a call later or something like that. So if you ever have a question about whether you think a notice needs to be posted because you know you're all going to be going somewhere, whether you think it's going to count as a public meeting, reach out to myself, Michelle, our city clerk, Robin Connor is really great with it. The mayor is really great at understanding this, and our commissioners are really great at understanding it. So feel free to reach out to any of them. And if they don't have the direct answer, they'll send you straight to me. But most of them, I feel confident that they can answer those questions for you at any time. The other things about quorum are, there's a term called round robin or sub quorums, and that is where you go to 2 or 3 people on your commission and find out what they're going to vote, or encourage them about what you're going to vote. And then once you find out you got maybe 2 votes that you think are going to side with you, you go to a different 2 people, because now you don't have a quorum. You're moving from small group to small group to small group. But if the intention of that is to influence or to find out what each other are going to vote on a topic, then that's prohibited as well. And it's called round robining, because you could essentially influence the entire group into voting one certain way. There is an exception to that, in that your chairperson does have some rules that allow them to poll the group, but the chairperson cannot tell all the rest of you what someone else is going to do. So a good example for polling the group would be when maybe you need to have an idea of whether something even should make the agenda or not, because you're not really sure how your governing body feels about that item. As the chair, Betsy, you could call each individual and ask them, Clark, how are you feeling on this topic? Would you like to see it on the agenda or not? Not asking Clark how he would vote on it, but just, do you want it on there? Peter, how are you feeling about it being on the agenda? And if you find out that a majority of your group would like it on the agenda, then you can make the decision to do that. But you don't inform each of them what the others have told you. That makes sense. So that would be a good example for when polling is appropriate. And if you ever have a question about something you want to know, can you poll that topic? Just reach out to us and we'll help you make a decision on it. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about FOIA. And then after I talk about FOIA, I'm going to take just a short break, see if you have any questions on public meetings or FOIA, and then we'll do the other 3 topics real quickly. So FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act, and it is a statute that allows individuals in the public to ask for any document that is a public document. That sounds really simple on its face, but the question becomes, what is a public document? You are now appointed officials, and anything that you create in the process of city business becomes a public document. That means if you email each other to discuss public business, those emails become a public document. Even though you might email from your individual accounts, if there's a discussion of public business, those specific emails will become subject to FOIA. The same thing with your cell phones. If you text each other with regard to public business, those text messages become subject to FOIA. Now, that might even seem simple because you would think, well, I can just submit the things that are, if there's a FOIA request, I'll just submit exactly what they ask for. But the problem is that you don't get to make the decision about what's subject to FOIA and what's not. That's Michelle's job. She's our FOIA coordinator. And so if, for instance, she was to get a FOIA that said, the person is asking for all text messages between all members of the Human Relations Commission between April 1st and the present, you would literally have to submit all text messages between you and any other member from April 1st to present. And you'd have to give those to Michelle, and then Michelle would go through them and decide which ones are city business and which ones are personal. The ones that are personal, she will not release, but the ones that are city business, she will. So if you, Chris and D'Angelo, I happen to know that you guys kind of go way back. If the 2 of you are talking about the basketball game that you're going to play on Saturday, you're going to have to submit those messages to Michelle and let her decide that those are personal, and hope that neither one of you said in the text messages, did you see that one cutie at the court or anything like that, because Michelle's going to know. So you guys have to think about this as you're doing it, right? Because Michelle's going to get to see that. And if Michelle has any question about it, she's going to give it to our FOIA director, which is our city administrator. And if the 2 of them can't decide, they're going to give it to me to help them make the final call. Meaning that even though you turn those into Michelle, there could be 3 of us that see it. And depending upon how those messages are couched with each other, it might get released. And so the rule of thumb is anything that you do not want to see on the front page of the paper or reported on WLEN, do not put it in writing. Period. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Call.
Call. Yes. Always call. They can't FOIA your voice calls. So
Okay,
if it's anything that you feel is questionable, that you wouldn't want it to get FOIA'd, call. Or if you need to text each other, you text and say, can you please call me? Give me a call as soon as you can. Then you can call each other and you can have those discussions, okay? But if you don't want it to be in the media, do not put it in writing. Trying to think of a really good example, but the ones that are good examples, I don't even want to say them, because if they didn't make it to the media already, I don't want them out there in this public meeting. But I can't tell you guys the stuff that we've seen sometimes that we've been like, oh my gosh, guys, don't do it. So just don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So, Paris?
Yes.
I realize this is a public comment, but there is the other famous email rule: never reply to all.
Thank you, Commissioner Goss. It's on my list, but thank you.
Yeah. Well,
And
I
would
you
you,
know, I
while
know.
you're
Well,
commenting, would you mind using yourself as an example as a new commissioner? Would you tell them?
yeah, when I was a brand new commissioner, I made a mistake, not even realizing I was making a mistake that I trying to remember who sent the original email. It doesn't really matter. It may have been the administrator, but it went to all the commissioners, and I hit reply to all because I wanted to tell everybody, here's how I'm going to vote, and it was taken as, oh, geez, are you guys trying to? And what you, Gordon, you trying to influence our vote? It's the last time I've ever hit reply to all. Tamaris talked about pulling you off into a small room and talking to you and explaining to you. It's a very uncomfortable thing to have happen to you. Even though she's a kind person, you feel like you're in kindergarten and the teacher is beating you up. So anyway, yeah. And then I went to the Michigan Municipal League training for newly elected officials, and the general counsel, the first thing he said is, no matter what, you never hit reply to all. So it's pretty much a good call.
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. And so you can reply to each other if you need, if you need to reply, but you just reply only to the author of the email, just never hit reply all. So, but yes, and Commissioner Gordon is not the only commissioner that's ever happened to. It's happened to others. And so it's something that you guys all learn coming in the door, but there's always somebody, and it's just out of habit. So he's absolutely right about that. Also, you can never delete emails and text messages in an effort to avoid responding to a FOIA. It's okay if you're deleting things out of your phone because that's your habit and you delete threads or you delete text messages. But once Michelle has sent you the ominous email that says FOIA request in the subject line, anything that's in your phone, your emails, if you delete it after that date, it can cause a legal issue. So do not delete anything after the point that you have been notified that a FOIA request exists. So any questions so far from any of you on the difference between a government body and community meetings, what we do in pre-meetings or regular meetings, notices, quorum, or FOIA? No?
We're good. We're good.
Yay.
And can I just say something really quick, Tamaris?
Sure.
One thing, it can seem very boring, I guess, or I mean, there's been comments like that it takes all the fun out of the meetings when you stay on that very strict schedule, but they know now, your public or even your fellow commissioners, now they know what to expect, and it just works. It runs your meeting better. It works well. Mm-hmm. It may seem like this is ridiculous. We're asking for public comment. Nobody's here, or there's like one person, they're probably not going to say anything, but you never know. And just following that exact order, even though it can feel a little bit too rigid, maybe is the right word, it works. It runs your meeting. This is a city entity with, these commissions, and it just makes it more professional, and it just really, it gives consistency across the board with all of our meetings as well.
Thank you, Mayor. And also, well, any other questions or comments about those issues? Okay, I see everybody shaking your head, so, all right.
No, we're good. I'm good.
Okay,
I'm
great.
wondering if we need to have a meeting, if we really are having a meeting next week. But anyway, so, well, we don't have anything. We have things we want to talk about, but not necessarily any agenda. So
well, maybe you should schedule a study session then.
Then if I can do that, then that's what we will do. And then we don't have to worry about the Zoom meeting next week.
Okay, great. So next I want to talk about number 4, proper supervision of public comment. So under the Open Meetings Act, you are required by law to have a section for public comment in every meeting. So as the mayor said, even if no one is sitting there and you know there's not going to be public comment, the option has to be given. So it's always should be on your agenda as an area for you to do public comment. Now, what I will say is traditionally with most of our commissions, public comment is at the end of the meeting, but that is not required that it be at the end of the meeting. You could structure your meetings where your public comment is on your agenda at the beginning of the meeting, but you have to have at least one time that public comment is available. We have more than one in our city commission meetings. In our city commission meetings, there's an option for public comment after every resolution, and that gives the commission the opportunity to hear what the public think about that specific topic. When an individual comes up to talk after a resolution is read, they're only allowed to discuss that specific resolution at that time. They can't just talk about the dog park that they don't want to have when the resolution on the table has to do with whether or not we're going to approve the hiring of a new city administrator. It has to be topic specific if you're going to allow public comment after resolutions. You're not required, though, to allow public comment after each resolution. So that's a decision you need to make for your individual commission, whether you want to do that. But if you do, you need to do it consistently and every time. So that's something you need to discuss as a group and probably take a vote on as a group as to whether or not you want to do that. Also, if you want to have a time limit on your public comment, you are allowed to do that. 3 to 5 minutes is the recommended time. You don't want to go as low as 1 minute because people may not be able to say everything that they need to say. 3 minutes is usually plenty of time, and you'll find that the public learns to, because you're doing things consistently, they learn that they should write things down or gather their thoughts before coming in to speak on something like that. And if you do have a time limit, you will have to pass a resolution for it, and someone will have to use a timer at your meetings that's visible to the public as they speak so that they know that their time is running out. And you also will have to know that if the time runs out, you have to be the bad guy, and the chairman has to say, I'm sorry, but your time is up. And when they say, no, 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 I just wanted to, you have to cut them off. Because if you don't and you let Annie go for an extra 30 seconds, now you have not given equal opportunity to anyone else who wants to come and speak at public comment. There can be a time, appropriate time, when a commission can take a vote on a specific instance and say that we would like to set aside the time limit for public comment on this specific topic. And that might be something when you know, especially with like the HRC, if you knew that there was a hot topic on the things that are going on with racism right now, if you had something in place for a time limit, you may want to set it aside just for that meeting. And someone could make a motion to do that, and you could agree to do that in that meeting. And that would not then vitiate your previous resolution that you have a time limit in every meeting, but you could do it just for that topic. In addition, if you only have one time for public comment, you have to enforce that they only get to have public comment once. I don't know if any of you were on our last commission meeting, but I was put in a position where I had to do that because there was a topic that people really wanted to talk about and were really passionate about. So once they've had their turn to talk, they don't get to come up and talk again and again. It's not an argument to go back and forth, but it's a time for the public to tell you what they think and for you to listen. So it's very important that as the commissioners, you know that when it's public comment, it's your time to listen, not to respond, not to bicker back and forth. If you have a specific question for someone, you can signal your chair that you need to ask that question because you need clarification, but it's not the time to go back and forth. And you may think that that feels rude or that it's uncomfortable. Two things about that. One, your time is coming right after during commissioner comments. And two, if you kind of have that vibe, it's up to your chair to say to the public, we want it to be known that public comment is the time for you to talk and for us to listen. And that if we have a response to what you're bringing to us, we will respond during commissioner comment. And that will help people to understand the process and And then you won't get those glares or those people who go, are you going to answer me? Are you? Well, because they do it. So, and if someone does that, again, the chair can speak up and say, I understand that you would like to get a response from us. This is our time to listen and your time to talk. And when commissioner comments come up, if anyone has a response, they will share it at that time. It's also, you are also charged to make sure that there's appropriate language during public comment. And that means that if people start using curse words or people start verbally attacking others who are on the dais or verbally attacking others within your public audience, that it is the responsibility of the chair to take control of that meeting and for them to ask that person, they need to call order, they need to ask that person to gather themselves together and refrain from whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's using foul language, whether it's verbally attacking someone, and let them know that that's not allowed within our city ethics policy, and that if they cannot speak appropriately during public comment, then their time will be cut off. That's a very difficult call to make because people are entitled to, by law, entitled to their opportunity for public comment. So in the event that that call has to be made, be sure that you have given every opportunity for them to regroup. Do you need to, you know, madam or sir, do you need to take a moment to regroup and then come back to the dais and we can let you finish out your time? You know, or do you just need to take a breath? But we just cannot condone this type of language, and give them a chance to go on. If they can't do that, then you will have to ask them to leave. Next is confidentiality. Just want to reiterate for you that things that are talked about amongst each other should be kept confidential if it's not talked about in a public meeting. Confidentiality is very important, but even more so if you receive an email that says attorney-client privilege, don't you dare ever, 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 ever share it with anybody. Attorney-client privilege means that this is only to be shared between you and I. And once you share it with a third party, the attorney-client privilege is broken. And once that happens, it means that if that's broken and it gets out to the public that someone else has seen it who was not supposed to be a party to this email, we now could be obligated to release it to the whole wide world. Because now that that privilege has been broken, it is subject to FOIA as well. So oftentimes when there is something of high confidentiality that's going on, you might receive an email from me that's labeled attorney-client privileged information because it's something that you need to know about that should not be released to the public yet, or may never be released to the public for that matter. And sometimes that may be difficult to do. You can discuss it with one another privately. So if Andrea gets the email and she wants to call Lindsay, not text Lindsay, call Lindsay and talk about it, they can do that as long as the both of you are in a private place where you cannot be overheard. Your family members cannot overhear you. Your coworkers cannot overhear you. Your children cannot overhear you. I'm telling you guys, one of my kids got me on this as a school board member. I was in my car thinking I'm talking in my car so these kids won't hear me. And they were outside playing and they heard from outside and they went to school and they told their friends something that I said. And it got back to another board member that this kid at school knew because they were a board member kid too. And I got the call from the school board president that said, Samaris, we really don't think you would have done this on purpose, but it happened and we need to counsel you on it. So, and then I went home and screamed at my kid, but just be very, very careful that wherever you're at is a place where you can assure that your conversation is confidential if you're talking to one another, okay? Last, I want to talk about ethics. We have two ethics policies as a city. One is the official ethics policy that that talks about whether, oh, let me see what this first one. It's the one that has an ethics board affiliated with it, and a policy for what we do if an ethics violation is alleged and how we follow through on that. It talks about not revealing email communications that are confidential, not breaching your confidentiality. It talks about not receiving gifts, not doing things that are self-serving. And when you have to recuse yourself from something, if, say, there was a vote coming before your commission and your immediate family member was going to benefit from that vote. So if, for instance, who's here? Joaquin, if your mother owned a business and she was, she had some type of bid in for a contract with the city and your commission had to vote on whether to accept that bid, you would want to recuse yourself because that is your immediate family member. So you would say, I'm going to recuse myself and I'm not going to vote on this and leave it to the rest of the commissioners. But if it was your third cousin, you're not obligated to do that. You can still enter your vote. So it's when it's immediate family, but the ethics policy teaches us all of those things. I believe it's been provided to all of you by email, but if it has not, we can ask that Michelle send it out to you again. There's a second ethics policy that the Human Relations Commission actually drafted in 2018, and it's worded differently, and it includes some additional things. But the second ethics policy is more of a values code, and it actually goes through each item and tells you what does that value or ethic look like. So for example, number one is I will be ethical. In practice, this value looks like I am trustworthy, acting with utmost integrity and moral courage. I am truthful. I do what I say I will do, and I'm dependable. And it goes through and spells out for you what is the expectation from you as an appointed official or as a city employee in what you will do. And it covers ethics, professionalism, service, being service-oriented, being fiscally responsible, being organized, communicative, collaborative, progressive, responsible use of social media, non-toleration, a no tolerance policy on discrimination, and being respectful. Most of those are very, very simple for us to follow. I would just point out to you the two that are the hottest topics that we deal with, and that's social media and discrimination. And they often go hand in hand. So though I know that you have your own personal social media pages, and theoretically you should be able to say whatever you want to say on social media. However, you accepted an appointment to this position. And in doing that, you took an oath that you would represent the city morally and ethically as well. So if you have personal opinions about things, whether it be about city activity or whether it be about individuals within the community, as an appointed official, you should not be discussing those things or posting about those things on social media. And specifically, if those opinions relate to any area of discrimination, whether it be other than you saying, I will not stand for it, right? But if you have a personal opinion about a specific race, a specific religion, a specific sexual orientation, you should not be expressing these things in a negative manner or any way that you could logically think that it might offend someone else. You should not be posting that on your social media. And again, I know that feels like a control mechanism, but if you could just relate it to any other job that you have, whatever job you have, when you choose to take that job, there's some rules and boundaries that each and every one of us have to follow if we want to remain employed there. And so this is a job that you've taken on when you've agreed to be an appointed official. And there's some rules and boundaries that we all have to follow if we want to remain in those positions. And so for some of you, they're less. I know, like I'm certain that Mayor Heath and Commissioner Goss and I can all attest that we can't cross the street without going to the corner, or else there's a risk that someone may take a picture and accuse us of breaking the law. And those are silly little things that we have to deal with because we chose to apply for these positions. And so even myself, if I want to, go out and have family time with my family, I oftentimes do that when I'm out of town, just because I don't ever want someone to say that I was setting a poor example in the community that I live in, even though what I'm doing, I might feel like it's perfectly fine. And I'm not saying you guys got to run away from home. I'm just saying, recognize that what we're asking you to do is not anything more than what we do ourselves, and that it's because of the position that you have agreed to take on. So I believe those are all the topics. Do we have any questions on public comment during meetings, confidentiality, or ethics?
No.
No, ma'am.
Your head, people, so I can
No.
see no questions.
No questions.
I have a question. You're going to have it open for public comment?
We are going to have public comments on the agenda, Commissioner Goss. Normally, just for the record, because Commissioner Goss doesn't mind when I use him as an example, you would not let a person in your public audience jump in and talk during your meeting, but this was a very casual training. And he did ask earlier, do you mind if I say something? And so, but normally those in the public gallery would need to wait until public comment. And if they do try to jump in, your chairperson just needs to say, if you could please wait until public comment, we'd be happy to hear what you have to say. So seeing no questions then, we are going to open up for public comment. So anyone who has public comment at this time, please feel free. State your name for the record and where you live, and then go ahead and make your comment.
I'm Gordon Gauss. I live at 432 State Street in the city of Adrian. I just had a suggestion because we got a lot of new people on the HRC and maybe people on the Historic District Commission that haven't been to a city commission meeting lately. We have one coming up on Monday. I believe, like as usual, it's at 7 p.m. and it's a Zoom meeting. You may want to watch it. It's a good example of what following specific meeting protocols are, the things that our city attorney here just reviewed with you, but it's probably worth the 45 minutes or an hour that you could spend on Monday night to get it. And it comes before either meeting that's coming up. And for the HRC, I know that we're going to have a resolution to reactivate. So that probably is worth watching as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gauss. And also, our pre-meeting is always right before the regular meeting. The time does change. Sometimes it's 5:30, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 6:30. So you'll want to look at the public notice. That time changes based on the amount of topics that are on the pre-meeting agenda. But that's a great way for you to see an example of what pre-meeting or a work study session looks like and get ideas of to be able to separate that for your own agenda. And you don't have to be in both, and you don't have to stay the entire time, and you can just pop in and for the time that you have available. So that's acceptable as well. So then at this point, I'll ask, are there any commissioner comments? And that would be all the rest of you.
I would like to comment on it. If you do watch a city commission meeting, one thing that I'm doing, I just personally had watched other commissions at different cities, and so I gathered ideas, but I really liked that some of them will say who gave the motion and who gave the second right before they go into roll call. That's just something I did on my own. It's not something you have to do. So I just wanted to let you know that's just something that I did myself. It helped with Robin, who was taking the minutes, to be able to make sure that we were on the same page with who actually gave the motion and who gave the second. But just put that out there, that it's not something you have to do. So there are some little things that you can kind of, tweak like that, but it just helps. Another thing, is, since I was, brand new and I really wanted, obviously, to keep the format, as formal and keep it going the way it had been, I was asking, well, how do you say this? Like, how do you bring this motion in? How do you bring this resolution in? Like, what do you do? And that led into a whole thing where we ended up writing a script, and it was just a lot easier for me to be able to run those meetings. I still use it to this day, even though I've got it memorized. It's just good. Like, sometimes, it might be something that's a little bit controversial, or it just might be that you're nervous about something, or maybe something trips you up. It's just good to have that script there. I rely on it to go back to in case I get lost. Like, it also helps me because I check things off as I'm going to make sure, but just having a script can really help too, to really keep, in those guidelines, to make sure that you ask for public comment, to make sure that you ask for commissioner comments, if that's what you're going to do as you go through each item on your agenda. It might help to do a script. It's just, you don't have to, it's just something that has definitely helped me.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to add to Mayor's point. I've had some experience being secretary for another group, and it's extremely helpful whenever the chair says something along the lines of who gave the motion, who gave the second, especially in cases where you do have to actually include both seconds.
Yes. Yes.
And I also do advise anyone to take a look at the meetings. I think the commission meetings, I think they're worth a lot of information and really good for knowing how the meetings actually are structured.
Okay, well, because we started just a couple minutes late, I have kept this very close to 1 hour and completely out of breath after that. I want to welcome all of you who are new commissioners. Always feel free to reach out and ask me questions. Stop by my office if you're in City Hall. For right now, stay 6 feet away and wear your masks, but otherwise, you're always welcome to come by or to call me and ask questions. We would like to thank the Historic District Commission for joining us tonight and for giving us input from their commission as well. And I'm very excited to have the HRC being, hopefully being reinstated. I'm very excited to be able to report to the commission that everyone was present for training, and that we can feel confident that you guys are ready to move forward. If you can all answer one question for me before we go, and that is, what is tonight's takeaway?
Be careful.
Yeah.
The rules are not
Optional.
optional. They are
Rules
not
are
optional. We must follow the rules. Does that, if you make a mistake, that's not the end of the world, but if you do make a mistake and you realize it, please let us know. Sometimes it's something that we can fix. And as long as we try to mitigate things, that's always better for us if it ever does become any type of legal issue. But just the rules are not optional. If it makes you feel better, you can follow the process that Commissioner Gauss and I did for the past 6 months. I think we're past it now, but we had a rule that if I called him, the first thing I had to say was either you are in trouble or you are not in trouble. And then we could go forward with our conversation. So that way he could stop panicking if the phone came up and said city attorney. So we're past all that now. And I just say, hey, you're not in trouble. And then we go on to talking. So that way you know what the conversation is going to be. So.
This is Andrea.
Andrea.
I'd like to say something. Can you send out an email of the ethics and the value code for the HRC to each of the members?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Also the agenda. I wasn't able to open it and make a copy. I like to keep the copies and write on them. So if you could forward that to all of us, I would appreciate it so much. And it needs to be in a PDF file or one that I can open.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
talk to Michelle about that. She's the magical person.
Yes.
And then finally for HRC, it is our intention to have the agenda on Monday's meeting for City Commission for you to be reinstated. Your regular meetings are the 4th Tuesday of every month. So you should plan on getting your notice together, and you should plan on meeting via Zoom, or if you choose to, you can meet in the commission building, but we would have to set you up for social distancing. I would really rather prefer that you do Zoom right now, with our numbers going up. So
And we
that would be
have to
better.
Zoom because Sister Pat is not allowed to leave.
Right.
Okay,
can't-
great. So Sister Pat, lead the way. Keep them on Zoom till December, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but
They
make
don't have
sure
a
that,
problem with it.
make sure that
Nope.
someone, Mayor Heath, would you like to take responsibility for working with Michelle to get that notice
Yep.
out just this time
Yep.
until they have their meeting? Can you help
Yep.
her put together an agenda and get the
Yep.
notice out until you guys will be electing officers at your first meeting? So you'll need a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, a treasurer, and in the past, I think we've also done a alternative secretary in case someone can't make it. So just keep those things in mind. And
If you have
And-
agenda items that you would like to see on that, please get that to me as soon as possible. Our meeting will be July 28th,
at 7 p.m.
correct, at 7 p.m.
It's always the 4th Tuesday at 7 p.m.
So no pre-meeting.
You
If
will
you
not,
want,
if you want a pre-meeting, you can get those items to the mayor and she can set up a pre-meeting as well, okay?
Okay.
All right, then at this time, I am going to ask Dylan, because he's been quiet the whole night. Dylan, will you make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'm not too sure how to say that, but
So you just want to say, I move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Can everyone unmute yourself who is on a commission? And everyone in favor of Dylan's motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Do we not
Thank
need
you.
a second for that?
Oh, I'm sorry, we did. See,
I
thank
would
you.
like to second the motion.
Who seconded? Thank you, Joaquin. Second by Joaquin, and everyone in favor say aye.
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 And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming to
Thank
training.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
you.
Thank you.